Morning and welcome to this week's market update. Not too much going on in markets, but I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your support in the open letter that we sent to the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe on cryptocurrencies. We'd like to announce, if you haven't already seen it on the news, the decision was turned after the case went to court with Golix versus the Reserve Bank earlier this week. But anyway, we walk you through stocks, currencies, commodities, and cryptocurrencies. Let's start off with the stock market. Stock market exceptionally muted considering the amount of action we've seen so far during the year. Nasdaq 100 was the outperformer, obviously because of the growth prospects for tech. And the major underperformer, Euro Stocks 50, with the weaker euro. Zoning in on the US, we have got the Nasdaq 100 up 1.38% this week. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.15%. S&P 500 up 0.31%. Then moving on to Europe, we have Euro Stocks down 1.66%. FTSE 100 down 0.62%. DAX down 1.07%. Asia and Pacific, Nikkei 225 down 2.09%. Let me correct myself. This was the major underperformer this week, mainly caused by currency moves. Dollar against the Japanese yen weaker on the week. Moving on to the ASX 200, 0.9% down. Shanghai Composite down 1.63%. Hang Seng down 1.48%. Africa, we've got Nigeria down 2.84%. Nairobi down 1.32%. And the positive story in Africa, however, not positive on the week. The Zimbabwe Industrial unchanged, and then the FTSE JSE Top 40 down 1.42%. Let's move on to the currency market. In the currency market, we have the US dollar against the Canadian dollar being the outperformer on the week. However, there weren't major moves in the currency, well, when you look on the left side of the graph. But when you look over to the right side, you see significant weakness in the yen-related pairs. British pound against the Japanese yen, the major underperformer, and this was caused by the economic weakness in the UK. Japanese yen, well, I guess it was just an unwind of the dollar yen super long position we had from a couple weeks ago. But expect more strength coming into the week, especially with the dollar rally we've seen. Dollar index was stronger this week, but that will be discussed later on. Let's move on to the more interesting story of the week, which is emerging market currencies. Emerging market currencies, you've got the US dollar against the Russian ruble unchanged. You've got the US dollar against Turkish lira up 4.78%. Interesting story in Turkey.
That's a big move, eh?
Huge move. It's similar to the move that we saw in the Russian ruble a couple weeks ago. US dollar against the Brazilian real down 2.21%. US dollar against the Mexican peso down 1.98%. US dollar against the South African rand down 1.98%. 99%.
I mean, the rand was really moving this week. It was going up, down, up, down. It was really volatile.
It was going up and down.
Living up to its name, really.
Definitely, as in like the name of the rand is volatility, right?
True.
But I think that was mostly caused by the weakening and strengthening in the bond market. I think we found an equilibrium around the yields over the past couple of weeks. But let's talk about the Turkish lira for a second here. Turkish lira, you have what I think is probably going to result in a currency crisis in Turkey. The president was instrumental in driving the borrowing rate in Turkey up significantly, and you know, any time government gets control of monetary policy in a country, it means trouble. It really means trouble. We've seen it in history, and you know, it's a sign of weakness within the country in the currency markets. And we'll wait to see how that story develops in Turkey, but I would be super short the Turkish lira.
Especially with the dollar rally if it continues.
Dollar rally and the increase in the price of crude oil. Turkey being one of the major crude oil importers in the world. The price rise means their import bill increases. So if you want to play oil, I think that's an interesting space to get into, to get exposure to that. But let's move on to commodities. I got a bit ahead of myself there. But in the commodity space, you've got US coffee, the top performer of the week, related to a strong cocoa price. Weather in Cote d'Ivoire has sort of been more favorable for cocoa. You've got US wheat up 5%. Same story of the week. Love for soft commodities and absolutely no love for the hard commodities. Precious metals, you have gold and silver. Gold, silver, and copper fairly unchanged. However, we did see some strength in the gold price following significant weakness we saw last week, mostly caused by the decrease in volatility as traders are less worried about geopolitical risks. Then, right at the bottom, you've got WTI crude oil down more than 5%, 6%. 6%, and that came after news that OPEC would be coming to another agreement. Well, not another agreement. They're meeting about decreasing the increasing supply of oil.
When is the meeting scheduled, or hasn't been scheduled yet?
I don't think the meeting has been scheduled yet, but there are definitely whispers about it. So that's going to be something to watch over the next couple of weeks. Let us move on to the last asset class, which is cryptocurrencies. In the cryptocurrency space, you've got Bitcoin down 13.51%, below the 8,000 level, which was so significant. You've got Ether down 21.06%, XRP down 13.02%, and you have got Bitcoin Cash down 22.58%. Okay, now these moves tell you something about the whole utility tokens versus tokens that are meant for payments. I mean, you've got the tokens that are meant for payments down more than the utility tokens. What do you think of the whole utility tokens versus?
I mean, the price action is actually very interesting because this year has just been playing around key levels and it's not really going in one direction, basically, this year.
That's true. That's very true. But hey, we'll continue to monitor the space and see what crypto has in store for us.
Anyway, this week, headline news, there wasn't much going on, but one of the main headline news was bullish earnings helped the S&P avert weekly loss despite the rising geopolitical tensions with Trump and Kim. I mean, that was an interesting story though.
That's very true. I mean, Trump sending a very strongly worded letter to Kim, and then I saw something in the headlines this weekend actually about Kim wanting to meet Trump and promising denuclearization on top of that.
Do you think it's going to continue into next week, or is this last week?
I think it's the main story we're monitoring this week. But along with my view on markets, which we will see in our trade idea, I don't think it's something to worry about.
I hope you're right. And another headline was dollar notches a second straight weekly win.
Oh yes, along with the theme that we've seen over the past few weeks, the theme I've been waiting for impatiently since the first quarter, stronger dollar.
I see. And lastly, gold prices posted a weekly win as falling bond yields cushioned pressure from a surging dollar.
That, along with decreased worries about geopolitical tensions, gold's been an asset I've been watching very closely over the past few weeks, and I think it's one of the better ways to play decreasing perceived risks in the market over the next few months.
It's going to be an interesting week, I guess. Anyway, moving on to the economic calendar. Today, it's a public holiday in the United States and in UK. And on Tuesday, we've got consumer confidence data coming out at 4 p.m. Then on Wednesday, we've got GDP data coming out at 2:30 for the US. And we've got the interest rate decision for Canada coming out at 4 p.m. Then on Thursday, we've got CPI data for the Eurozone coming out at 11 a.m. Then we also have pending home sales for the United States coming out at 4 p.m. And then lastly, on Friday, it's Jobs Friday, and the figures will be released at 2:30 in the afternoon. And lastly, for the week at 4 p.m., we've got manufacturing PMI for the US.
How many jobs do you think the US economy is going to have?
Oh, that's a difficult one. That's a difficult question, considering last time they didn't meet expectations. So this time, it's a very difficult question.
Mm-hmm. Well, the forecast is quite optimistic, coming from a very low base of 164 last time. 190, too optimistic? Optimistic enough?
Yeah, it's a bit optimistic, but it's possible, I think.
Definitely. Well, I'm positive on the US, I'm positive on the US dollar, I'm positive on the US economy. So it'll be interesting to see that one. Speaking of being positive, the US, I would like to present my trade idea for the week. Trade idea for the week is a bit more complex than usual. However, I'll try and dumb it down. My trade idea is to go long the VIX. The VIX is known as the fear gauge. It is an index that basically tracks the 30-day volatility of the S&P 500. So essentially short the VIX. So essentially by going short the VIX, what I'm doing is I'm betting that volatility is going to go down. So that either means the market is going to rise slowly, or it's not going to move much at all over the next few months. I'm selling the contract for July, meaning at the end of July, that contract expires, right? Now the current level of the volatility index is 13.22 at the current moment, and the future trades at a slight premium just to account for time and the interest rate. So as time goes on, that those two prices start to converge, and that's what I'm betting on. And I'm also counting on it going lower than 30, probably to the mid 12 levels. So you can snatch a nice profit. Stop loss at 16. So it's a very high probability trade. You can afford to take a bigger loss.
As they say, selling man, go away.
Selling man, go away. I'm not a subscriber to that one. But over the past couple of years, we've seen very low volatility in the market. And during this time of the year. And I'm counting on that happening again. But anyway, that is our trade idea for the week. And that brings us to the end of our market update. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Yes, please. And
comment section.
There we go. Comment section. Please comment. We'd like to know what you think about what's going on in the markets right now. And we would also like feedback on the videos. We're thinking of switching to a podcast type of thing, so we'd also like to know what you think about that. We might run a few polls on Twitter and Facebook. But until then, we will see you next week.
Asante sana.